Welcome to the Women Leaders Association podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. Be sure to tune in each week to hear an empowering message from the world's top women executives, trailblazers, entrepreneurs, and all-around fierce female leaders. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I will be taking you on a deep dive of each message to equip you with the principles, strategies, and tools you need to start crushing your goals, increasing your impact, creating work-life harmony, and did I mention have more fun? Because when you love what you do it better. The Women Leaders Association is the world's largest women executives association with over 30,000 women in executive and leadership positions who are committed to the development and advancement of women in the corporate arena. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association chapter, would enjoy daily podcasts, or you desire to become a part of the Women's Mastermind group near you, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com. Now let's tune in for this incredible message. On today's episode, hear from Pennie Sempell. Pennie brings a rich background in law, dispute resolution, stress resilience education, and creative arts to Sempell. With expertise in mind-body therapies for over 20 years, Pennie has collaborated with providers and researchers to engage clinicians and their patients in innovative self-care protocols for stress coping, lifestyle change, and building resilience as a complement to Western medical care. Welcome, Pennie. Hey, welcome back to the Women Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I am so honored to have Pennie with us today. Welcome, Pennie.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me join you.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get started. Let's dig right into it, because I know so many of the women listening have before or in the middle of or will experience in the future burnout. And, you being the co-founder of Sempell, talk a little bit about what you have experienced with burnout with your clients and what you've kind of gathered from, warning signs of burnout, what we can do about it. Let's dig in.
Okay, well, thank you. So yeah, there is a whole lot to this world. And first we want to start with some terminology things. So burnout itself, that word, it tends to mean workplace burdens, workplace related stressors that are piling up. And there are some classic signs of burnout itself. There's also a much bigger category, though, of overwhelm and frustration. It may not really be burnout, but there's still those feelings of being just too much on your plate, of frustrations on the job. It can be interpersonal things going on. So burnout itself is like cynicism, depersonalization, feeling like you're not doing the work doing the quality work that you expect of yourself, feeling more detached from your work, those kinds of things. And then that, as well as the broader range of distress, is really widespread now, and it's been growing even before the pandemic and after the pandemic, both in the general population, and we have really zeroed in on healthcare workers themselves, but applies to everybody in the healthcare field and the public at large, where stress has been on the rise since about the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard the other day somebody said that that burnout is a choice. And like, I live unoffended. I just feel like that is the best way to live my life. It's not to be offended. And so, but it did cause me to pause for a second and go, that is stirring something in me, because on one hand, I get it. Like, I get that sentiment of, at the end of the day, right, we do thankfully have the ability to choose one thought over another, as long as we're not impaired in any kind of way, right? And so I understand that part of it. And on the other side, there is so much feeling and emotion and all that goes into these feelings of detachment from your work, and maybe even like you're talking about on this broader sense of, here I am, I have 6 kids, right? And I am constantly chauffeuring them around. And so just that, like, hustle and bustle and feeling like I have to be here and I have to be here and I have to really creates more of that feeling in me, more so than my workplace does. And so, although I understood what he was saying, I still had pause with that. And so I'm just curious as to what is your take on that saying in particular?
That saying that burnout is a choice.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there would be a lot of people who are thought leaders in this field and researchers who who disagree with that statement. But within that statement, there's some things that are really have value. So if you're talking about the burnout itself, there's a lot of workplace burdens that are impacting for, because that's considered a workplace phenomenon, that you really aren't choosing, and it probably isn't a deficiency in the person. But where there is a lot of validity here is in science around how we can learn to increase our capacity for psychological flexibility and
Mhm.
resilience. And that gets into the thoughts, the brain chatter, the stuff we're saying. So there are actually some very well studied uh, therapeutic modalities, intervention strategies, you might say, that are not well known to the general public and are not widely taught yet. And this comes out of mindfulness research, acceptance and commitment therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. There's some skills you can learn for
Mm.
how you work with your mind, how you learn how to become aware of your stress triggered responses. So that's kind of a word I want to share with
Yeah.
you listeners. Stress triggered responses. We don't think about, so there's this external world out there, these external stressors, whether it's at home, family, work, right? External stressors, they're out there, you're responding to it. And we all respond, right? We are human beings, we respond. What's really exciting, and where that saying you said has some, pointers that are valuable, is that we can learn to increase our brain's capacity to change our stress triggered responses, which kind of fall into three major domains. And this is helpful to think about too. Okay, I'm going through the stressor right now. All these kids I've got to deal with, this, maybe an elder parent you're taking care of, stressors at work, wherever it may come from. There's three major areas: thoughts and feelings, right? You got these thoughts. Thoughts are the words we say in our head. I'm screwing up. I can't get this done, right? That person's impossible. The words we say in our head. Then there's the feelings, right? We're all, well, whether it's frustration, anger, sadness, confusion. There's a whole world of feelings we might have. And then there's our behaviors, our actions, which might also be things we omit, like putting it off, right? Avoidant behavior. Or it might be sarcasm or defensiveness or blaming, or there's a huge world of stress triggered behaviors and actions. And then the third category, third bucket, you might say, is on our physical responses: the headache, the shoulders,
Mhm.
tense, tension, body
Yeah.
tension, GI distress, insomnia. There's a huge, increased use of substances that maybe we shouldn't be taking so much of, right? So if you think of thoughts and feelings, one bucket, behaviors and actions, or omitting to act, and kind of, that we can learn to become aware of that, to more aware of those. And then the next step, and this is where the science has really evolved, and the kind of intervention strategies have evolved beyond that kind of present moment focus, just be aware of where you are in a moment. That's fine and that's helpful. And that's where 99% of the stuff out there is about. So we're
Right.
present in the moment. But the science is helping us know that there is more we can do. And that's where the tip comes in. We can learn to then, oh, yeah, that was just kind of nasty what I just sarcastic what I just said, right? That was just kind of a sarcastic remark I made. Is that aligned with how I want to see myself? Is that consistent with my values? Do I want to see myself as a person who's sarcastic to others, let's say, right? Or who puts off something, or who blames, right? Do I want to see myself? So assessment, awareness.
Yeah.
Hey, I just did this stress triggered behavior. I just had this stress triggered thought, right? Is that helping me be resilient? Is that helping me to live? Is that how I want to be seen or valued? Assessment, awareness, assessment. What's the third one? Am I willing to flexibly choose a more workable behavior or
Mm.
response? Choice, choosing a more
Right.
workable response or strategy. So that might be you catch yourself and you say, I was just kind of sarcastic to, my friend there. And I can turn and say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm experiencing a lot of stress right now. That may have come across kind of sarcastic. You're doing a great job. Right? So
Mhm.
so with awareness, self-assessment, and then being willing to act on a more workable strategy, we are able to start changing our stress triggered response. So instead of our stress levels going up to a 7 or an 8, maybe in the face of these external stressors, the pressures, the kids, getting them here, there, the job, it goes up to a 2 or 3. So it's a
Mm,
lot easier to recover from a
yeah.
2 or a 3 than it is from a 7 or an 8. So that's about, and most apps out there, there's, hundreds of thousands of wellness apps at this point. They're mostly focused on stress relief. But with the
Right.
exciting part about kind of these new advances in therapy and in intervention strategies that we can learn online in brief training, that's what
Mm,
we focused in with Stress Pal. We focused in on how, let's start with healthcare workers because they are under so much stress right now. We're facing a potential, you know, crisis. I mean, it's looking like a crisis in terms of shortages in the health field. How can
mm,
we help these individuals working in extremely high pressured environments to be able to have the internal skills they need for in this high stress environment for self-awareness, self-assessment, and choosing more workable strategies to help take those stress levels down. So
right.
it's very exciting because what we've learned is that you can learn these intervention strategies in brief, in sequential brief
Sure.
training, like learning to ride a bike or a musical
Right.
instrument, kind of a little bit at a time. You start
Mm.
developing brain habits. You got to be able to change how your brain responds to stressors, and that benefits you, right?
Yeah.
Benefits
Well,
the
and
people
that
around you.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that was the question that was kind of in my mind was, I've been in these situations where I've reached that point of decision fatigue. So like, yeah, I'm aware and I'm assessing and I know what's going on. And then I'm like, oh, but I just feel like I cannot have that. I don't have that flexibility capacity to change my behavior. I'm like, nope, I'm on the couch. This is what's happening, And so my question to you is going to be when you're in that point and you're aware, you've assessed, and now you're to the point of like, but now I got to do something about it,
Right.
but you physically don't feel like you can do anything about it, right? Because you haven't worked in that capacity yet. You haven't expanded that capacity yet. Then it's not really the time, right? This should be something we are working to build in our non-stress times as well, correct?
Well, you raised a lot of good things there. So one of the things is we human beings are very symbolic. We think very symbolically and very visually in our mind. So if I tell you to think about a pink elephant, you got it, right?
Yeah.
It took a nanosecond. You had that pink elephant in mind. So I'm going to share with your learners well, these intervention strategies we're talking about, the most powerful ones that you do in the heat of the moment. That's the
Right.
expression psychologists use. In the heat of the moment. Yes, you can apply the cognitive strategies. There's cognitive strategies, behavioral strategies, and physical strategies.
Mhm.
Cognitive strategies are, I'll share one if you like. Would you like me to share
Please
something?
do. Absolutely.
Okay, you can use it today on the couch when you're feeling absolutely overwhelmed. And these are called metaphors. These cognitive strategies, metaphors are very visual,
Uh-huh.
and we've brought them to life in our programs with animation. We don't have animation today, so I'll do it with words.
I
But
love it.
we're very visual beings, and so we can call to mind a visual metaphor like that. Takes a second or two, and immediately we can start making a change. So here's a cognitive strategy that I love. It's called loosening the grip.
Mm,
Now, we all have heard about letting go. It turns out that when letting go is studied, it's hard for a lot of people to let go because the
mhm,
thing that the tension or the overwhelm is about may also have value for a person, and the idea of letting go somehow feels to many people like they're losing something. So there's
mhm,
a lot of resistance to that. But I'd like you to imagine for a moment that you're holding the end of a rope and it's tied to a tree, or maybe somebody else in your life is holding the other end, and you're just you're squeezing, you're pulling, you're pulling, you're pulling. And now I suggest you loosen the grip.
mm.
Just loosen the grip. So there's these competing thoughts, there's racing mind, you're trying to figure it out, you're trying to solve it, your brain chatter is going on, and you're just going to think of loosening the grip on that rope. on those thoughts, loosening the grip of thoughts. You're not giving it away, you're loosening the grip. That can be called up just in a moment, and it starts changing. We can see from brain research, it starts changing what's happening between the amygdala in the brain and the prefrontal cortex. You're engaging your prefrontal cortex. You're starting to be able to sort of distance yourself a little bit from that thought. You're becoming more of an observer. Okay, so you're loosening the grip. Already you can start to, there's a feeling of at ease or sort of a distance from the holding tightly. So that's one. There are a whole group that you can put in your resilience toolkit that you can readily learn. And and then those are kind of so that this toolkit may include things like this, cognitive strategies. Also, we found in research that, and I was glad to hear this, that mindfulness and relaxation training or exercises, let's say mindfulness meditations or relaxation exercises, can be very effective even when they're very brief, like
Mm,
1 or 2 minutes. So decompression exercises, which I'd be happy to share some links to some to your learners if that would be of interest. I can provide them to you if you want to share later. There are some, if you can take 1 to 2 minutes, I've produced several 1 minute ones that are just great. You
mm,
listen to 1 minute and already you can start to, in your mind starts to change that hormonal cascade that's
mm.
happening when you're feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And that, right, that's the change. Is can I start to interface with the way my thoughts and my experiences are impacting my whole self?
Yeah.
And it's exciting that we have toolkits. So things you may all have heard of, things everybody's heard about are things like gratitude journals and
Mm,
taking a walk in nature. These would be called behavioral strategies or behavioral interventions. All
mm,
good, right? But
mm.
they usually can't be done right in the moment. Some of those things would take
Right.
a little bit of time. So they can help with that stress recovery process, and they can
Mm,
with your with your reactions. But the cognitive strategies, which you also can get a little toolkit of those, they can be done right when you're just absolutely overwhelmed, and they can be learned in a matter of minutes. You just
yeah.
it's the practice, the calling it to mind, so that, oh yeah, there
Right.
was that thing I learned, yeah, that
Yeah.
loosening the grip, or dropping the shovel, or monsters on the bus. I'm mentioning a few that are well studied and just wonderful to have in
Yeah.
your toolkit.
I love that. I coach a lot of speakers, and one of the things that we do as an exercise, because when they're like, "Oh, I'm going to get so nervous," I'm like, one, reframe it that nervous is a good thing. It's excitement, right? But two, before you actually walk out on stage, when you're back there in the back, I take everything and I tense it up like until I shake, right? And then I let go. And and it made me think of that loosening the grip. And you do feel this like, just like everything calms. So as you were saying,
Yeah.
loosening the grip, I had that. I could almost feel it in my own body as you were saying it. And so I can see how powerful that would be to just call that to mind when you're in that state of tightness and having to hold on and, clenching the teeth and just feeling all of those feelings that go with it.
Yeah, what's that thought? What's that thought I'm feeling? What's that thought that's running through my mind? Is that helping me in this moment to be more resilient? Well, if it's not helping me, if it's not helping me with what's important to me, am I willing to try a different strategy? Okay,
Yeah.
loosen the
And
grip
I
on
love
that.
that. I love that asking yourself, am I willing to try a different strategy?
Yeah, that's right.
That's
You're not
that's
managing
right. You're
yourself.
not making yourself do it,
You're
right?
making yourself, yeah,
Am I
yeah.
willing
And the
to do
idea
it?
of actually managing turns out not to be so effective. So that word is not used so much. We don't use it at all in the Stress Pal program. Because it turns out that managing doesn't work for a lot of people, and it's more
Mhm.
like observe, that willingness to look at and self-assess and change. You mentioned something else when you talked about the tension and relaxation
Mhm.
years ago when I was a young grad from at Berkeley in psychology. And then I went on to law and practiced conflict resolution and mediation for a long time period of time. And progressive relaxation is actually very helpful. That practice of tension and
Mhm.
relaxing, tense and relax. That's a tried and true, been around for, at least 20, 30 years in terms of an effective strategy, because we tend to relax a little bit into it. And so that's a nice behavioral strategy
Yeah.
that you can use. I wanted to
That's
pat
cool.
you on, pat yourself on the back for teaching
Yeah,
that
good job.
because it's a good
Well,
one.
I knew it worked for me, so I'm glad
Yeah.
it's a proven strategy across the board.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Penny. So talk a little bit about, so for the listener that is listening right now and is just enthralled with this conversation as I am, I love all things brain and learning. Okay, how can we live our best lives, right? How can we? And I love that willingness, using that verbiage. That's so powerful. Some of these little things. So, to the one who's listening right now, it's like, okay, where do I get started? Is Stress Pal an app? How do I connect with Penny? Like, what is my first step? How would you?
Mm. Okay, well, I think one of the first steps is to recognize that, our resilience, this vitality that we have, is actually a learned capacity. We've learned it along the way. We've developed the defenses and such, and when we're in stressful situations, it can wear down. And then we can also learn, just as it can be worn down, we can ameliorate, we can improve, we can
Mhm.
strengthen and protect this important capacity for resilience and psychological flexibility, that ability to adapt and respond in a different way. So we can learn that. We did design the Stress Pal program. The program that we have launched is for health workers in all roles, but also anyone else. So if you want to send me a note on our website, Stress Pal, I can make sure that you get access to the program and can, if you want to take a look, there's an overview, you can take a look and learn more about it. And I'm always happy to do a consultation to help you, hone in on your situation. So that program is designed over little increments, bite-sized modules over about 4 to 6 weeks. So that gives you an idea. This is a kind of learning that's paced. It's like
Right.
changing a habit. You're changing a brain habit here. You're
Mhm.
changing the way your brain responds to the stressors around you piling in. And that takes a little increment, a few minutes a day. Then there's self-help practice. You're coached in self-help practices. All of it's online. It's self-guided learning. And by the end of that program, you really have a personalized toolkit that you've developed and you've been implementing all along the way. So we always encourage people, don't just, race through the program. By the way, our program is it's AMA approved for physicians. For they get a big bundle of credits doing the program, as do nurses and social workers, and all people, clinicians and non-clinicians, take this program and earn interprofessional credit. So one of the things about, so that's on the accreditation side. If you don't need the credits, that's fine. But just giving you a feeling of that this is we took the steps to have this approved and accredited. So the thing about it too is so that you come away with skills that you can start implementing, really practical.
Mhm.
As you learn it, you can apply it. You learn it, you apply it, and you're building blocks, just like we learn a language, where we don't start out by someone just telling us a bunch of words and we know it. That's not how we learn to change our brain, right? Our brain changes by implementing a thought or a practice or a cognitive strategy or a behavioral strategy, by implementing that. And then, may take us, as we practice, we get more skilled at helping ourselves. So that's the way we structured in this program. Then we provide a whole resource library of stress relief, mindfulness meditations and science articles and modules. So we kind of follow up with ongoing support. So that's how our program works. And individuals can take it as well. It's
Yeah.
available to anyone to take as an individual.
That's great. We'll be sure to link that site in our show notes. But Penny, thank you. This has been such a great conversation. What would be one last, maybe introspective question that somebody could say, like tonight? Let's say they don't have the chance to get on, right, and look up your information yet. But what is one kind of awareness factor that they can implement tonight as they are getting ready for bed?
Mm. Okay. Well, that's a very nice question. Maybe I'll share something that I find helpful for me as a real quick. I learned this at a Buddhist retreat years ago. And it's a very helpful mind quieting practice. Is that along the line of what you like
Yeah,
music?
let's go for it. Yeah.
All right. You have your inhale and you have your exhale, right? On the inhale, think aloud in your mind. I heal my mind and body.
Mm.
On the inhale, think aloud in your mind. I heal my mind and body. On the exhale, think aloud in your mind. I listen.
Mm.
Simply that. On the exhale, I listen. This is a very powerful practice. I heal my mind and body. I listen. That can mean whatever it means for you.
Yeah.
Things will pop up, other thoughts will jump in. That's fine. And you might just do this for a few minutes, a couple of minutes. And I'd love to hear if you have what you find.
Yeah, I love that. All right, ladies, here's our challenge to us, right? If you are so bold as to take this on and do it, please do let us know what comes out of it for you. We would love for you to share, so be sure to do so. Be sure to connect with Pennie and Stress Pal and all the amazing work that they're doing. Pennie, where do you hang out? Do you have a social media account, LinkedIn, anything like that people can connect with you?
Definitely on LinkedIn. That's our primary place where we are. If you can always reach out to me at Pennie, Pennie, at stresspal.com. If you do go into the StressPal platform to look at our program, you'll want to send me a contact. Just send me a little contact, and I'll make sure that my team will make sure that you get the access to the solo learner version of the program, which you'll see on the side is kind of the yeah. You'll make it. I'm not a nurse. Can I do the program? Yeah. Just drop us a note. We'll make sure you get the version that just right for you.
I love that. Pennie, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your expertise with us today.
Thank you so much.
Yes. All right. That's all we have for you today, my friends. Be sure to connect with Pennie. And also, if you're looking for more stories just like this, visit womenleaderspodcast.com. Bye for now.
Thanks so much.